The angel vanished, leaving behind a silence that was almost painful. Kaelen slowly got to his feet, his limbs trembling, his pride shattered to dust. He looked ahead. The road to Moab still stretched before him, but now it held an entirely different meaning. It was no longer the path of false hope, but the path of atonement. He was going to Moab not to earn money, but to protect Lyra. When Kaelen and the delegation arrived at Vorlog's capital, he was a completely changed man. He passed through the lavishly decorated city gates, looking at the towering banners bearing the king's sigil without a flicker of emotion. A royal procession appeared to welcome him with chariots and warriors, and King Vorlog himself stepped out, his face beaming with victory. "You have come at last," Vorlog exclaimed, taking Kaelen's hand. "I knew you were a wise man. Did you not trust my messengers? I can make you richer than any man alive." But Kaelen's eyes were distant, looking past the king and his wealth. His mind was still heavy with the weight of the divine encounter and the horrifying truth about Lyra. "I have come," he said, his voice calm but filled with power. "But understand this, O king, I can only speak what my God commands." Vorlog laughed, assuming it was just the way of prophets. "Then let us not waste time. Come, the ones you must curse are waiting." As night fell, Vorlog led Kaelen to a high place, a sacred hill overlooking the nomad camp. Below, thousands of campfires twinkled like a sea of stars on the earth. "Look," Vorlog commanded, his voice filled with hatred. "They are as numerous as locusts, a people too numerous to count. Curse them for me now." Kaelen stepped to the edge of the cliff. He looked down at the sea of tents, but he did not see an enemy. He saw a community, a great family, and somewhere among them was Lyra. A wave of intense and protective love surged in his heart, a force greater than any greed. He no longer turned his face to the heavens to look for omens. He already knew what he had to say. He took a deep breath, and when he opened his mouth, a powerful blessing flowed out, echoing across the hills. "How can I curse whom God himself has blessed? From these peaks I see them, a people set apart, mighty and beloved. Who can count the dust of Jacob? Who can number the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my end be like theirs." Vorlog's smile froze on his lips, his fists clenched, his knuckles turning white. "What in the blazes are you doing?" he hissed. "I brought you here to curse them, not to bless them." Kaelen's voice was unwavering, filled with a peace he had never felt before. "Did I not tell the king that I am only permitted to speak what God commands?" Vorlog's rage erupted like a volcano. He could not believe his ears. His perfect plan, his ultimate weapon, had turned against him, but he had not given up yet. The stubbornness of a king would not allow him to admit defeat. "It must be this place," Vorlog reassured himself and snarled at Kaelen. "This place is likely tainted by their presence. Come, we will try again at another place. A different hill, a different altar. Perhaps there your God will allow a curse." Vorlog grabbed Kaelen's arm, almost dragging him through the darkness. They climbed another high peak, Mount Pisgah, where ancient stone altars stood stark against the starlit sky. Vorlog's priests scurried to prepare another 7 bulls and 7 rams for a new sacrifice. The smell of blood and incense was once again thick in the air. "Perhaps here," Vorlog said, his voice now tinged with desperation, "perhaps here your God will relent and let you curse them." Kaelen stood again before the offering. This time he closed his eyes, not to seek permission, but to fully embrace the power surging within him. He felt the connection to the people below, to Lyra. He felt the protection of a great power, and once again, when he opened his mouth, a blessing even stronger than before poured out, like an unstoppable river. "God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? See, I have received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot reverse it. No misfortune is seen in Jacob, no misery observed in Israel. The Lord their God is with them." Vorlog's face contorted with fury. "Enough!" he screamed, his hands clenched into fists so tight they trembled. "This is absurd. If you cannot curse them, then at least do not bless them. Be silent." The king's patience had run out. He could no longer maintain his royal facade. In a blind rage, he grabbed Kaelen's arm again, dragging him to a third place, a peak overlooking the desolate wilderness. This was his last hope. "Surely here," Vorlog insisted, his voice a mixture of command and pleading. "From here you see only barrenness. Surely here you can curse them." Once again, the altars were prepared, but this time Kaelen did not even need to close his eyes. He no longer sought omens or prayed. Instead, he stared out at the wilderness, and as his gaze swept over the sea of the covenant tents in the distance, the Spirit of God came upon him in its fullness. A mighty power took hold of him, and he spoke not as Kaelen anymore, but as a true prophet, a spokesman for the Almighty. His voice rang out, no longer a simple blessing, but a poem, a majestic hymn. "How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob! How lovely are your dwellings, O Israel! Like valleys they spread out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by the Lord himself. Water will flow from his buckets, and his seed will be in many waters. His king will be higher than Agag, and his kingdom will be exalted. God is with them. Their strength is like that of a wild ox." At this, Vorlog staggered back, his mouth opening and closing, no words coming out. His astonishment had given way to an uncontrollable rage. His entire plan, all his gold, his efforts, his hopes, all had collapsed. He turned on Kaelen, his eyes blazing, his voice a growl like that of a wounded beast. "Enough! Get out! I called you to curse my enemies, and 3 times you have blessed them. Get out of my sight, return to your own place. I intended to make you rich and powerful, but see, your own God has kept you from your reward." Kaelen stood tall, completely unfazed by the king's fury. "I told you from the very beginning, O king. Even if you were to give me a palace full of gold and silver, I cannot go beyond the word of God." Then a miraculous thing happened. Kaelen turned his face toward the eastern horizon, where the dawn was about to break. With the power of the Spirit upon him, he spoke one last time. But this was not a blessing for the present, but a prophecy that would transcend his own life and Vorlog's, and echo through thousands of years of history. "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star of hope shall rise from Jacob. A scepter shall emerge from Israel. He will crush the borders of Moab and destroy all the sons of Sheth." As the prophecy ended, Kaelen turned his back on the stunned king and walked away into the silence of the early morning. He had completed his mission. He had protected Lyra and her people. His heart was now light and at peace. Defeated and humiliated, King Vorlog stood on the mountain peak, watching Kaelen's silhouette disappear. His rage had cooled, replaced by a cold cunning. He turned to his closest advisor, his voice a venomous hiss. "If we cannot curse them from without by magic, we will destroy them from within by corruption." And this was the final scheme, a plan even more insidious than any curse. Vorlog gave the order, "Send our cleverest spies, our most beautiful women, to infiltrate their camp. Bring wine, decadent pastimes, and sow division. Tempt their men, make them forget their God and chase after base desires. Make them curse themselves with their own sin. The strongest fortress always falls from within." On his way out of the capital, Kaelen, with the sharp hearing of a man who lived in the wild, happened to overhear this conversation. A chill ran down his spine. He realized the battle was not over. The power of God had protected the people of Israel from an external curse, but he would not interfere with their free will. They had to resist the temptation from within themselves. And Lyra, his sister, was there, potentially in danger. Kaelen faced one final choice, a choice even more critical than confronting Vorlog. The messengers had given him a small pouch of money, a travel stipend. He could take that money, return to his solitary life, and leave them to their fate. It was a considerable sum for an ascetic, but he looked at the pouch of money, then looked toward the desert where Lyra was. Without a moment's hesitation, he turned back, found a small market on the outskirts of the city. He did not use the money for himself. He used almost every last coin he had to hire the fastest runner he could find, a young man with swift legs who knew the desert paths well. He did not write a long letter. He simply took a small piece of leather, used a piece of charcoal to draw a single symbol, a symbol that only he and Lyra would understand from their childhood, the image of a small star with one ray longer than the others. Beneath it, he hastily wrote a few words: "Beware the vipers in the garden." The young runner sprinted off, carrying the small piece of leather that held a life or death warning. He reached the edge of the vast camp, asked around, and searched until he found a young woman drawing water from a well, a girl with bright eyes and a radiant smile named Lyra. He handed her the piece of leather. Lyra opened it, surprised. But when she saw the drawing of the star, her eyes widened. Tears immediately welled up. It was her brother's sign, a sign she thought she would never see again. She read the warning and instantly understood the invisible danger stalking her community. She looked up toward the distant mountains where she could feel her brother's presence. A smile of hope and gratitude bloomed on her face. She would take this warning to the elders. They would be protected. The blessing had been fulfilled in the most complete way, not by a thunderous miracle from the sky, but by a quiet act of sacrifice and love. Kaelen, standing far away, would perhaps never know for sure that his message had reached Lyra. But he had done the right thing. He had found his salvation not in gold or power, but in self-denial and in the protection of the one he loved. In the end, it was not the curses of kings or the magic of prophets that decided their fate. It was love that had become the most powerful blessing of all. Kaelen found his redemption not in silver, but in sacrifice. And the faith of an entire people was protected, not by a miracle from heaven, but by a warning sent from a brother's heart. The story of Kaelen and Lyra shows that love has the power to turn the most bitter curse into the greatest blessing. It reminds us that even in our moments of temptation, even when we lose our way, there is always a path back, a path of sacrifice and selflessness. In your own life, has faith and love ever helped you overcome a scheme, a hardship, or a temptation? Has a small act of love ever brought about a huge, unexpected result? Share the story of your own star of hope in the comments below. Every story shared is another light kindled, illuminating the path for others who need to find hope. And if this story of hope in the midst of darkness has touched your heart, if you want to hear more chronicles of how the power of faith and love can change history itself, then consider becoming a part of this journey. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you will not miss a single story from our channel. Thank you for listening.